closer, Sugar Plum?
Question is,
I feel like I mean, we're not gonna be as close as we were last time when we were almost kissing, but we're close. Close.
So,
Well, I guess I'll start by welcoming everyone. Welcome to Zen Mystery TV, our third episode. And we've got some interesting little things here.
Fourth episode?
Is it our fourth? Is it fourth?
Fourth.
It's fourth.
Yeah, may the fourth be with you.
Ah, nice. Okay. Excellent. Yeah,
Fourth
it is.
episode, you know, it's like third season. Usually great show goes one season is great, then it gets better, third one's awesome, and number four is just usually sucks.
Hopefully.
We're gonna try.
Oh, we're not hitting a slump. Hopefully this is more like Battlestar Galactica. Fourth, fifth episode, it's like bam, they're like on.
Alright.
Alright. But go ahead. Well, this is of course Zen Mystery TV, and this is Dennis Supanov.
And that's Carlos Mondonio, and we are hanging out at Zen Mystery Tea Lounge and Meditation Center.
Yeah.
And just having a good time, drinking some tea, eating some brownies,
Yes.
and talking about some good, interesting spiritual topics.
Yeah.
I wish we could record our conversation earlier, but we will just talk about stuff we learned.
Yeah.
Learned this week, and then we can talk about, let's see, I'll start.
Yeah. Go for it. What do you got today?
I think I'll start with an interesting gentleman by name Glenn Black from teaches yoga for the last 30 years. Just a little bit.
We talked about this a little bit.
So I've been sharing that to anybody I meet. Did you hear what Glenn Black said?
Now, this is not Glenn Beck.
This is Glenn
This is
Black.
Glenn Black.
Black of, he teaches in Omega, I think. Big retreat center.
He's the main guy at Omega. The main yoga.
One of the yoga main people that I at least there's an article of 2009.
Right.
I don't know what he does now. 3 years, 4 years passed.
Sure.
But the article was phenomenal. It took 2009 and stirred a big pot of yoga. Big pot of yoga.
Yeah.
And people were mad, and I think even death threats. And a lot of upset teachers saying
I thought that was very
he's discouraging
entertaining.
people to do yoga, and he's killing their business, and it's not nice. And I read that article, and I'm not a big yoga practitioner, but I appreciate art and science of yoga. So I thought he had some great points that everybody should be aware before they jump into this yoga practice. And if they know it, they'll be safer. They'll be honest with themselves. So I'll start. First thing he talks about, which kind of blew my mind, which I guess I didn't know I should.
It was pretty extraordinary.
Yoga poses, asanas, are not 5,000 years old. They're not 2,000 years old. They're not 1,000 years old. They're not 500 years old. They're not 300 years old. They're at most 200 years old, and most of them 80, 90 years old. Blew my mind.
These are pretty. I thought that was a pretty good little
So
bursting.
yoga was created to help out British people. Told British people come into yoga cannot sit in meditation poses that Patanjali talked about. So yeah, Patanjali, the father of yoga, only were talking about sitting poses. Again, it blew my mind. Blew my mind. And you remember, yoga is 8 limbs. Asanas is only one of them. So I guess British people couldn't sit and meditate, you know.
Intriguing.
So they created some poses for them.
I thought that was intriguing.
So phenomenal. It's just amazing. So nothing wrong with the poses. But it's an interesting education that kind of demythologizes it a little bit. The Vedas are old, 5,000 years. So there's Vedic texts, spiritual texts, but asanas are not. So let's not mix them together. Next one is he talks about injuries. Yoga teachers take a month-long course of yoga, or immerse themselves, or they study for 200 hours, even 500 hours. He says they don't know enough. And they compound injury on top of injury. They're not aware. His main thing he talks about throughout all the interview. I read an article is that awareness and consciousness, big deal. I mean, I love it. I love him for that. So injuries, be careful out there. So yoga is great therapeutically, but you have to know your body. Don't push with your ego. He says, got to be aware of what's going on. So
something what I was looking at is that the ego latching on when you walk into a yoga class. I mean, I've done some yoga, and I know kind of like what's happened to me going in,
So do you see a pretty girl or a pretty guy you want to be like?
Well, so far, I want to be like the pretty guy, but mostly paying attention to the pretty girl. But what I always look at, of course, they're doing in yoga, and you're in there, you're watching them do the asanas, and the teacher a lot of times won't be doing the asana themselves, so you're looking for a little bit of guidance, and who you end up looking at is the person who seems to really know what they're doing.
So you want to be like them, so you push.
Exactly. If it doesn't look, there's a certain part in the mind that always comes in. You're going to do yoga, you want to look at least like you're not completely lost. So to be not lost, you really got to look like that guy or that girl. So I think that sets a certain, if you're not careful, I mean, that can be the problem.
And I love that a lot of yoga teachers emphasize, just pull back in child's pose, relax. You don't it's okay. This is all a playground. So just be careful. Next thing he talks about, that a lot of teachers were upset at him after they wrote an article, and he's like, so in an interview they asked him about it,
well, he had certain remarks that I think they're a lot stronger, and I think you're trying to, I'm not mentioning too much.
So he talks about, people were saying, well, we teach yoga safely. We teach it and it's all safe and nice and neat, and he says that's not yoga either. Yoga is physical exercise, it's not just yoga. Yoga is 8 limbs of yoga. Yoga is not just that, and he talks about that yoga should be more pranayama, more yoga nidra, and not just physical exercise. They say, well, but we do yoga safely as a physical exercise, we're very careful, but he said that's not yoga.
It's an interesting thing that Patanjali is looked up to so much, and if you look at when you talk about yoga, we're talking 8 limbs, and the asanas are only 1 limb.
Yeah.
You're going into a yoga class, and
it's all about that.
You're doing.
And 8 limbs, where remember, Patanjali was talking about only sitting poses. Oh my God!
Interesting. Very intriguing.
So it's interesting. The whole interview and article just destroy all notions of yoga I had. I had suspicions because I'm very intuitive and I do yogas, and some poses feel very in tune for me with some ancient stuff. It feels like they were designed, like you feel some of them. And some of them felt like gymnastics to me. So even though they have great Sanskrit names, I guess it's not. So he talks a lot about pranayama, which is breathing exercise. Talks about yoga nidra, which is yogic relaxation and meditation exercises, which like they call yogic sleep. Kind of cool. This sounds so cool. Like you go into this lucid dreaming. I think by dreaming they mean awareness and consciousness, right? So and then he talks about myth of asanas again. He talks about that as myth of asanas is that it's safe to do yoga without awareness and consciousness. So
as exercise,
you come in, spaced out, do just blah, blah. It's not. I don't know if that can be even safe to do without consciousness and awareness. You can hurt yourself. Yoga, especially, you're doing some intense stuff. And I guess if you were like an athlete and acrobat or athletic person that can bend into a pretzel, you go yoga, you can do it without awareness because you're already flexible. But if you come in like myself, hip problems.
Like myself.
Like yourself, we got a little bit.
There's a certain amount of flexibility that, but yeah, I mean, very challenging stuff sometimes.
So he emphasized against awareness and consciousness in any shape or form, and I love him for that. So, I wish I got to meet the guy.
Yeah, as controversial as it is, coming back to the main point, that's what it's all about.
And then he talks about they ask him, so what's the goal of yoga then? Again, consciousness and awareness. So you're using body, and he's talking about hatha yoga is learning and being aware of your body, right? And that you can then explore other 7 limbs. I think the article is phenomenal, and I hope you guys all look into it. I'll put both article and interview links on the blog, on the notes. So that's me. So what do you got to share?
Well, what I had to share had to do along the lines of playing on research coming up. Research coming up on the mind and on issues having to do with the mind and certain things that affect all of us, or especially certain people in the population. And this is, the day after 9/11 that we're filming right now. And we're looking at the Scripps Research Laboratory actually here in Florida, on Jupiter. And what we're looking at is that they actually came up with some, and I'm realizing your notes are out there, but my notes are in here. And we're looking at the fact that the research showed that they were able to actually remove some traumatic memories from the minds of mice. I thought,
And how? I'm curious.
well,
I'm a little scared. How they do it? Electrodes?
researchers, here it is, putting bad
Laser
memories,
beams?
putting bad memories to bed. Researchers selectively erase methamphetamine-related memories in mice and rats. That's by Kate Yendel, and that was yesterday in The Scientist. And so we're looking at actually a certain chemical that they were able to isolate in the brain and neutralize. And to be very specific, they depolymerized actin in the amygdala. And what that has to do with certain memories or processing of certain memories. And they were able to get mice to be non-reactive to a prior traumatic experience that they've had.
So what did they give, drugs?
It was a chemical which is always goes into dangerous ground, which is, advocating, as I have been from before, and that we generally advocate here, as the ministry, we're talking about holistic and organic approaches to healing, and referring to the, free the mind, for example, and the research that's been done.
I don't think there's any shortcuts to solve any problems, especially a complex issue like this. Even though I think, we are all for everything natural and holistic and healthy, right? But science has a part to play, and possibly even some drugs in certain situations, and short-term solutions.
Sure.
But I think it's a dangerous territory.
I think it's the research is always valuable to see exactly how things work, and I think on that note, I think it's always, and of course I'm always, concerned when you go into trying to introduce, manipulate, such a very complex organ like the brain. You barely understand how consciousness, comes about in and of itself, but to try and actually go and remove a memory. I think in exceptional cases, like for example, we're talking about, after the day after 9/11, or the anniversary of 9/11, we're talking about, of course, traumatic, PTSD becomes something that comes to mind.
So they say don't heal it, remove it. Don't deal with it. That's just quick fix. Is that?
Well, this is one of the things. If we're looking at, it looks like what they did is that they went ahead and that they definitely just decreased and made it possible for the receptors in the brain not to stimulate that memory again.
Yeah, it sounds a little fishy.
Oh, it's scary. I mean, it's scary, but I think it's
say,
also.
Oh yeah, leave the mice alone, please. Do it yourself, scientists. Take it and see how it goes. Leave the mice alone. So
Horrible guys,
why don't we move on to the next topic?
Well, I think my related topic, where you want to go ahead and go with yours, and then I'll come back to mine.
Yeah, why don't you go with your topic, because it kind of ties up, because here they're talking about a person,
Well,
a
it ties
different
in.
approach to it.
Well, one of the things that I always like that becomes moves into what I'm fascinated with, which has to do with natural approaches, meditative approaches to transforming the inner landscape. And what we're looking at, for example, is a book by Chris Prentice. His book, Zen and the Art of Happiness, which has been around for a while, and I don't know many of you guys have read it, but I was rereading through the 5th chapter. There's a quote that it begins with by the Buddha, which is, I think, a beautiful quote. It's my mind is my reins, or my mind is the guiding rein. We're talking about the reins, of course. And the reason why I love that quote is that there's a lot of times where we talk about trying to remove the ego kind of that's all mind stuff and etc. But actually the mind is an incredible tool, and in the end it's what we have with which to then look back in and actually do some incredibly therapeutic things. And one of the things, beautiful things that he goes into in that chapter is research that has gone into transforming your mind state and actually reforming the pathways in the brain that we kind of automatically construct. And we talk about addiction. He talks about addiction to certain emotions, addictions to anger, addictions to depression, addictions to stress. That the mind reaches a certain stasis after a certain amount of period, in life, and whatever that stasis is that it feels that enables it to be, at a pretty decent survival or state of survival or sense of safety, it immediately runs to that habit, to that mental habit.
Yeah, I think a lot of teachers, like meditation teachers and so-called enlightened people, they're talking about that we are addicted to misery. Like, we don't want to be in bliss and happiness and whatever fun.
As much as you seem to arrive at whatever that darshan is, or whatever the meeting or the talk is, that we come there, we arrive there thinking that we're looking for this, for this peace, we're looking for this kind of opening, in our state of being. While in the meantime, we're completely and almost hopelessly addicted a lot of times to the negative states of mind. And
that's all we got,
for the most part. And I think it's almost a default mechanism, which is nothing wrong to say that it's just simply been something that's adaptive. That's how we've gotten to that meeting anyway. We survived long enough to get there, using whatever that is. So hopefully what he's talking about in that chapter is like, you've gotten there with that boat. It's time to leave the boat and step on the dry land. And we're looking at that, in that chapter, for example, at the rerouting of the brain, of cultivating through meditation. Using the mind to single out what the pattern is when it's arising, being mindful of it, and then cultivating, for example, we're talking Tonglen, cultivating loving kindness, cultivating compassion, we talked about in an earlier episode. He talks about cultivating a state of bliss, a state of happiness, something that moves in beyond happiness.
Well, sounds like a very great therapeutic book that touches some spiritual topics as well. Right?
It has some very good material, and it comes from a person. It comes from a person who has a lot of experience. He has a wonderful institute down in I think it's Maui called Pathways, if I'm correct, and I might even be getting that wrong, but his son was hopelessly addicted for many years, drugs, alcohol, and he was able to, with the help of his father, and them together actually find some remarkably useful approaches with a lot of ancient teachings. Actually, in that same chapter, he talks about acupuncture, a doctor who's there at the center that helps somebody through acupuncture and some Eastern methods as well. So I think it's just remarkable. Great book, great chapter, but what is it that you have up your sleeve with regards to films? Because I actually wanted to come back in regards to that. And this is one of my favorite topics.
I think we should reset the camera. This way we have time for films. What do you do that?
So we're going to take a break, and after these messages, which won't probably be much, we'll go right back to it. I'll be back with the next subject.
What do you? Well, I have something.
I thought we were gonna do behind the scenes, like we were gonna sit for a little while and chat while we went to commercials. Like, haha, you do a little conversation with the actress, like in the meeting. You have long hair, so you have to do the actress.
Okay, so cool. I leave the best for last.
It's fun. It's fun stuff.
5 spiritual movies that might transform your life.
Interesting.
So I went way back. I don't think anything. I didn't put anything from the last decade. I don't know why. There's great movies out there, but I love my old foreign movies.
These were effective for you. These were.
I think they're very meditative movies.
Yeah.
Very few meditative movies now. There's great therapeutic movies, educational movies.
Which you separate from the meditative.
Yeah, meditative. I don't know. We'll see. Everybody has a different experience. So that's to me. First one is by Peter Brook called Meeting with a Remarkable Man, and it's a remarkable movie in one sense, many ways, but in this particular way is, I think it's the only movie that's been based on a book written by what people consider an enlightened person. It's somewhat autobiographical, I think. Book is by the same title, by George Gurdjieff.
Right.
And it's a great story. It's slow, so you have to be mindful of that. It's not a Hollywood thing. Maybe meditate a little and then go and watch that movie. I think it's on YouTube for free. The whole thing.
Interesting.
The whole thing is free on YouTube.
I know that it's one of the only films that actually, within the film itself, it actually includes movements by Sufis. Like there's some meditative movements. Great
Sufi practices there, and sometimes when I hear music playing Sufi like, I just want to break into a funny dance that they show in the movies. And it's like almost like a theater. They're reenacting. There's a bunch of people having a dance, and there's a guy dancing like a monkey and representing a monkey mind. It's great, and they do the movements like this. So cool. Check it out. Check it out. It's somewhere down in the end of the movie.
So what's our number two?
Number two is, and I think you've seen that movie, is The Last Temptation of Christ by Martin Scorsese.
I've seen the first one.
I think, you've seen the first one? I forced you, I know, years ago. So, Last Temptation of Christ by Martin Scorsese, he maybe became very famous and infamous for that movie, because
very controversial book.
It kind of based by Kasansaki's book, same title, is that...
I think it was banned by the church, I believe.
Yeah, banned by Orthodox Church of Greece.
Yeah.
Because it goes through a Bible in a very entertaining kind of way. And then it has an addition to it that, I'm not going to ruin it, there is The Last Temptation of Christ.
Extraordinary.
It's a great movie. I'm going to rewatch it again. And I think we should show it during our movie nights when it's starting. So
we're starting a new program.
Should we, I don't know, should we do the first, maybe not the first movie, but we'll see.
It'll be in the mix.
So watch that, it's a great movie, great. And the next one, and it was a split for me. Director Tarkovsky, and I didn't know which to put. And I decided to stay with Andrei Rublev. Yeah. And then I decided not to put Stalker movie on that. And I know that's one of your favorite movies.
That's one of my favorites.
And we also, watched it long time ago together. I think I showed it to you. And both are great movies, but the Andrei Rublev was profound to me because it touched on some Russian history of how Russian Orthodox Church and the kings at the time wanted to implement church and exterminate pagan religion of the time, which was hundreds of years old, maybe thousands. And there's a story about a monk traveling to Russia, and he has interesting discussion with pagans. At some point, I think either the soldiers tied up this pagan girl, and I think they tied her up. She was running around naked. It was like a night where pagans would jump naked into water together. And then they caught her and tied her up, and he asked them not to kill her. And when they left, he's having this spiritual discussion with her because he's a monk. And it had such a profound effect on him, he gave a vow of silence. And I think the movie goes from there on, how he experienced Russia. And
she was still naked?
Yeah, it's a good movie.
You have to watch to find out.
There's one pretty naked girl in the movie.
You let me fall asleep before that? Because we were watching this together, I think.
You missed that part. I like the movie a lot, and if you're into historical movies, check it out. So the next one is, and I'm cheating a little bit because it's a mini-series.
Yes, this was a cheat.
1989 by Krzysztof Kieślowski, one of my favorite directors of all time.
Wonderful.
The mini-series called Decalogue. And Decalogue is, and of course I made everybody see it, and I probably forced you as well.
I love those.
It's based on 10 Commandments, and it's set in modern times, and one shall not kill, it's about killing, and different every commandment, and it's phenomenal. I think every movie is under an hour.
Yeah, the history of it is that at the Cannes Film Festival, when it came out, although there are tons of other films in competition, when it came out, people were, the judges were actually refusing to show up at some of the films they were supposed to be judging because they were all watching the Decalogue.
I think that happened with all his movies. Every time he would release a movie until he died in his early 90s, and he released some other movies we're not going to mention, but Decalogue is
pretty extraordinary.
Definitely spiritual
stuff.
And there's others even more entertaining, but I think it's not as maybe meditative. So the next one is, the last one is, I'm getting a little more modern here, but I think it's still like 2000. It's a movie by Ang Lee.
This was an interesting choice.
And it's not Brokeback Mountain or any other movies.
This is my first guess.
Yeah, it's Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Which is great, by the way.
It's a phenomenal movie, remarkable movie, and I love, there's one quote that stayed with me, is that he comes back from the mountains, and he's been meditating for a long time. He comes back and he says, I was meditating and I came to this profound sense of sadness in my meditation, and kind of made me come back and deal with some issues that I haven't dealt with, and I came back, and he meets the love of his life that they never got together, and the movie kind of starts that way. So that's great movies. Do you want to add any movies to that list? Anything?
Well, I did want to mention Stalker, which I thought was incredible. Tarkovsky movie.
What did touch you in that movie? What was interesting about it?
There was an extraordinary moment. It had to do with the way it was filmed, I think. There were these very, very long takes. It would normally be very kind of ponderous, but they were so beautiful. And I think it allowed, there was a sense of mystery that kind of entered.
It's interesting, if you pull back from that movie and realize they're shooting in some kind of gray bunker of sorts, right? And you pull back and there's just a bunch of guys running around freaked out in a bunker.
Yeah.
And talking about spiritual topics. Scared that something's going to happen to them. And he made it so interesting and so profound.
Very intriguing. You know,
and so sad at the same time, isn't it? It's like there's a sense of sadness in actually all his movies.
Well, along with that, I also thought that as far as Kieślowski, I loved The Double Life of Veronique. It's The Double Life of Veronique, and I thought that was, just a stunning, beautiful film. I also included The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, which is actually more recent. And I also included a little bit of slightly more popular film, The Matrix.
We've all seen it many, many times.
Yeah, I think
different entertainment,
many layers to it.
Mythology, that's some great sci-fi stuff too.
Yeah, and
I don't think I can see it again because I've seen it so many times.
I think I always take a little time and I rewatch sections of it. But there's always movies that affect you very deeply. Like I think there's an incredibly transcendent moment in the film Blade Runner, which is completely unexpected.
I think it's a very meditative movie because if you're not in the right state of mind, you're going to be bored out of your mind.
I see it in a very similar way with a lot more has a lot more obvious sci-fi elements because Stalker's a sci-fi film as well, but it has more obvious sci-fi elements. But the problem with that film is that you go in thinking that you're going into an action film, when actually you're going into something that's actually much more.
It's a contemplative film, right?
Yes.
You want to there's a lot of things to ponder and contemplate.
Yes, and you have actually the most awake, the most sincere and present moment occurs from one of the beings that isn't even real, which is actually an actual android. Which is just extraordinary. One of the last moments on the rooftop there.
There's a lot of moments that we didn't even touch on. All them more of a new age films they made based on the books. Peaceful Warrior.
There's Peaceful Warrior, which is a great film. Yeah.
It's a great philosophical movie.
Some films that are not so obviously spiritual but are extraordinarily profound. Recently, The Master. I think The Master, Magnolia, a lot of
Magnolia.
Very interesting film.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
So, and I think we're going to show some of these movies in our movie nights, our transformative media nights that we're going to launch on. We're launching a lot of new programs.
A lot of yoga.
We're launching a new yoga program every morning, twice a day. We're going to have tons of yoga. And then we're gonna have sunrise meditations, movie nights.
Monday mornings,
Carl's is teaching
6:45.
6:45. God bless us. It's phenomenal. Oh, it's so good.
It's extraordinary.
So delicious.
Yes.
That's the only way to describe it.
Yeah. Most certainly.
And we meditate and teach people meditation here as well. And I'll say thank you for putting up with us this episode. And this is Carlos of EMA. Of
EMA, emeraldmedarts.com.
And Dennis of ZenMystery.com and any other
And
kind of...
MeofZenMystery.com as well.
Yeah. Carlos of Zen Mystery teaches some lovely Tai Chi and meditation. And we're going to introduce some of the meditation class by Carlos as well once we get our schedule together.
Thank you so much again. Yes, we'll see you next time.
Namaste.
Namaste.